Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's New Year's Eve, and you are watching the Daily AI Show live, or perhaps listening to us. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm happy to be back. It's nice to see you, Beth and Andy. I'm Brian, like I said, and we'll see if anybody else pops in the door. Did a bit of traveling with the family, got up to go do some skiing, which is not something our Floridian butts do much very at all. In fact, as I was reminiscing on the slopes, and I was like, oh, I've snowboarded before, but my wife and I started thinking about it. The last time we had snowboarded was 18 years ago. And no, both of us were like, that can't be right. We did the math 3 or 4 more times.
Wait, I got to reminisce a little bit here.
Sure, go for it.
I was in the world of skiing long ago, and back then there were no snowboards at all.
Yeah.
And I remember not so long ago, at least in my recollections, when snowboards came on. You're telling me it's more than 20 years ago. I'm sorry. I just feel too old to do this broadcast.
Well, I'll tell you, Andy, don't go anywhere on us. Don't leave us.
Okay.
But the first time I actually snowboarded was in high school. So I will tell you now, I don't know where it predates from there, but I went snowboarding in, I'll say 95. That was the first time I ever was on snow, like skiing anything. And we went out to, my buddy had a friends of our friends of our friends. We were able to go out to Breckenridge and kind of like sleep on couches and do the whole thing there in high school. And yeah, so I don't know, we're really talking about 30 years of snowboarding. Cause like I said, I was doing it in high school. So
that was first spring clamp bindings holding down the heel of the boot from the front.
Yeah.
And the boots were just basically leather. There was nothing, ailing your ankle at all. And I went through the entire progression all the way up to today. I plan to go skiing again this year. I'm not too old yet for that.
Well, we had a lot of fun. It was very cold. I'm happy to be back in it's 44 degrees out here in Tampa, which is cold by any standards in Tampa any time of year. But it feels decidedly warmer than what we were just in on Monday, which was just freezing and 50-mile-an-hour crosswinds. I was shocked they kept the ski lifts open, but clearly that was of no concern to them. So it was a good time. Okay, well, listen, I'm sure everybody would love to hear us talk about skiing and reminiscing. We do want to do some reminiscing today, but we actually want to do reminiscing about AI. That's what y'all are here for. That's what everybody in the comments is. I see Ann in the comments. Hey, Ann, how are you? Sorry, I missed your show yesterday. I heard you guys did do some predictions. I wanted to say premonitions. Some premonitions about 2026. Some predictions 2026, and I did miss those. So maybe one of y'all can give me the update, and then I'll tell you what I did in prep for the show, because it was late getting in last night, and truth be told, I spent the last 2 hours taking out my Christmas shape. I'm gonna be honest with you. So I didn't do as much prep as I probably should have. But what I did do was go back to episode 366, episode 103. And episode 84. Why? Why did I go to those particular episodes? Well, they're either in and around the end of the year of 2023, 2024, and here we are at the end of 2025. And so I thought, with a quick Gemini swipe, hey, tell me what we talked about on that show. And I think there's some fun tidbits and stuff like that. We were talking about the GPT-2 or, Jumi or Beth or Andy, you guys may have made a prediction at that time, and we can kind of talk about whether any of those or how they progressed and things like that. So that's what we have going on today. But since I missed yesterday, and I suppose some other people did as well, Andy or Beth, can you kind of give me the highlights of what some of your predictions were? I'd be curious to hear real quick.
Well, my predictions had largely to do with the progression of agents to the point where, there's going to be, by the end of 2026, I think many of you in the audience are going to have the experience of having an agentic companion that is a workmate for you, and you're actually delegating. You're able to delegate to tasks, long-running tasks to those agents. And yeah, that was the number one prediction. I also predicted that Anthropic will go public in 2026. But I'm not the only one who's predicting that. Sure, yeah, but that showed this.
Yeah, still a good prediction. Beth, how about you?
I think I made a prediction about robots that Andy pushed back on. Maybe. I don't even remember what I said anymore. I think it was going to be that robots are more commercial, but not necessarily humanoid. Sure. We'll just see more like physical kind of automations. And I predicted this year, just like I predicted the last year and maybe even the year before, that we will see light-based chips coming to a computer near you, because at some point that will be true.
You know what's funny, Beth? This is from episode 86. I will get into this more, but or 84. I'm sorry, excuse me, 84. This is predictions for year 2. Beth wants continuity and memory. She hopes the AI will greet her by saying, "Remember what we talked about yesterday?" And then, are we continuing that? And so I just thought, based on maybe the last week or two, we had conversations about continuity and stuff, and I think it's fair to say we're farther along than we were in November or maybe December of 2023, clearly, but not quite there as far as a check mark, I would say. And yep, that one happened, So anyway, I thought that was fun.
I mean, it did get better.
Yes. Right. Like, exactly. Progression for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't come into this thinking honestly thinking about predictions. So I'm trying to think if I have any off the top. I think Andy, you both guys said stuff. I will tell you, it was in for those that I don't know where they are outside of the South, but in the South, there's a gas station called Quick Trips. Racetracks, Quick Trips, they look very similar. QTs is usually, they're just called QTs. And anyway, we popped into one, North Carolina, South Carolina, or Georgia. It was one of those. And there was a little robot going around with eyes, blinking at you, cleaning the floor and looking up at you with his little robotic eyes. And my daughter got a kick out of that. Did you see the robot cleaning the floor? I said, yeah, it's kind of hard to miss it. It had eyes on it. It was telling us things and stopping to clean the floor or whatever. And it was dead silent. It was just I had not gone into whether that's AI or not, it was just a robot, but I had never walked into a grocery store or a gas station and seen one before. So I thought, hey, that's interesting. It was definitely a first for me. I know that's a little more something you'd find in maybe a Seattle or more San Fran, but wherever it was that we had it, it was pretty cool. So not really sure if that was AI or not. Other than predictions, well, I think we already see this. We already know this is happening. So this is sort of a poor prediction. By the way, Carl just joined us. I'll just throw mine out there. I mean, I definitely think 2026 is the last remaining brick, right? That's putting any sort of presentations together. We just saw so much rapid advancement in the Google Notebook area. We just saw what happened with Manus and how they're if you create PDF slides basically in Manus using Gemini 3 or Nano Banana, then they're editable. And then there was the other company that made the layers, and or Quinn could break it out to layers like Photoshop does. And even Matt Wolf was just saying this. I was watching a video of his this morning when I was eating breakfast. And, he's like, look, this is obviously coming to everything else as far as the editable layers. So hopefully that'll come into Canva, which is the tool of choice for me, and make it even better than it is. But I think 2026 is the year where the barriers to making really, really, really good, fast, personalized presentations, some might claim that wall has already fallen and we breaking through. I think there's going to be a few more pushes that maybe integrate with AI. I'm sorry, AI, of course, AI, but video is what I was going to say. We've already seen what can happen with video or images. Video usually follows. So I think that's probably one right off the top of my head where I think that's a no-brainer. It's not a really great prediction, honestly, because you can kind of see the writing on the wall.
Well, and there's a little bit of news about video. Adobe has been really busy in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Actually, these things take much longer than that. I do know, but Adobe and Runway announced 2 days ago, maybe, that Runway has a multi-year relationship now with Adobe to bring Runway's models into Adobe. Maybe Flux was just added to Firefly. There have just been these little rollout of reasons that you might not want to cancel Adobe, since we know that everyone would prefer to cancel Adobe. So,
yeah, well, and we're seeing Adobe integrate right into, although I hear it's not great and I haven't even tried it, but Adobe inside of ChatGPT, and things like that. So that'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I suppose we should start with a little bit of news. I wasn't even really thinking on that because it's just sort of the end of the year. It's like I said, it's New Year's Eve, and how much news is really rolled out. But does anybody have any news stories that they wanna bring up?
I'd like to update on the Meta Manus acquisition, and there's an active, group chat about Manus right now in the thread over here on YouTube chat. I read that because of the way the deal is structured, once the acquisition is concluded, there will be no further Chinese ownership of Manus. It will be entirely owned, obviously, by Meta. But the founders, while I think that the CEO is Chinese originally, I don't know if he lives in Singapore now or not, but it looks like it's going to be freed of any complications that might cause regulatory pressure on Manus because it's operating out of a Chinese organization and or investors behind it who are Chinese. Now, that means that in the acquisition, all of the Chinese venture firms that put money behind Manus will be cleaned out. Like they'll get their payday and Meta will pay them to go away.
Well, I think that's a good pivot to, which I'm sure you guys have talked about because I've been out a few shows, NVIDIA and Grok with a Q, and that acqui-hire that's not acquisition. And we've seen this now play out. Now, I was just learning because obviously we had talked about how this has happened. Microsoft has done this, Gemini, or Google has done this, Amazon has done this, and now NVIDIA is doing this. And Matt Wolf did a great job in his video sort of breaking it down, talking about how the regulatory bodies are probably going to have to get their hands around this. I don't know if you guys talked about this on the show, but he was kind of breaking down saying like this skirt around that allows them to bring on the talent, but it doesn't stop them from competing. The company still exists, so it's not an acquisition, but it feels like an acquisition. And he also brought up something that I think is valuable, and I just didn't have time to like deep research it. But he was like, look, the people who are basically caught on the outside looking in are the day-to-day employees, the people who helped build Grok, let's say, with a Q again, or some of these other companies that have gone through something like this. Because he said, traditionally in an acquisition, there's payouts. Like you could have invested early in the company and you might have had, some stakes in the company. And, because it's not going through acquisition, because they're not absorbing that company, there's really not this buyout. Now, the top people do just fine. I'm sure they're getting, like NVIDIA is bringing on the guy who started, I can't think of his name, but he started Grok, and also had worked at Google previously on their TPUs. Just an interesting call out. And again, go watch the Matt Wolf video from 2-3 days ago, because he really sort of breaks it down much better than I'm doing. But I thought it was really interesting, and I thought both points are valid. One, who really wins, who really loses when companies do this? And two, how much longer, even into 2026, to talk about predictions, will we see this allowed to happen? Because clearly these companies feel that this is a workaround, and I'm not so sure that will keep going.
Well, let me comment on it from the perspective of somebody who's been involved in companies that were acquired, and also having been part of companies that acquired other smaller companies. There's a couple of things to think about there. One is that the employment agreements that you get, even as a line employee, if there are equity grants, they contain a term where if there's a change of ownership, there's an acceleration of your vesting. So typically there's a vesting period of the stock that you earn. For some companies stretch it to 5 years. But even if you joined Grok just 2 years ago, there's probably in a meaningful position. I'm not talking about the personal assistant, but they might even be participating in some way. But there's an acceleration clause, which says that if there's a change of ownership, which is not happening here technically, that there is an acceleration and you get 100% of your vesting or some other degree of acceleration. My guess is that this being a very, very friendly acqui-hire / acquisition of the talent, everybody at Grok is being taken care of that way. So everybody's getting acceleration, and the acquirer has the privilege of saying, yeah, we're going to honor the spirit of your employment agreement, and you're going to get that money. Now, the other factor to think about is that when a company gets acquired, especially by a larger company, the larger company wants to, generally speaking, wants to have some level of control and organizational management of that new acquisition. And so many of the people who are in the existing organization are redundant to the already existing functions within the acquiring company. The acquirer. And so you don't have guaranteed employment going through that transition. So those people might be on the street, but if you were any employee at Grok, you're in big demand by a whole host of other opportunities, and you got acceleration. And so you're going to be fine. You're going to get some money in this deal. And on top of that, you're free to now go on and do something else. So I didn't listen to what Matt Wolf had to say. And there may be some particulars that I'm not aware of, but I think they did well.
He was talking more generally, and he referred back to again, I can't remember the names of the companies that were acqui-hired or whatever, but all the big companies had done it. So he named those companies, and he referred back without giving a cited source and saying there was talk about how some previous employees in a previous situation weren't taken care of, right? So he was referring to that. It's curious to me because obviously Grok will continue to operate. And so is there redundancy if it's not really being absorbed by NVIDIA? I think there's some interesting stuff there. Look, we'll find out. Obviously, it'll come out in the news over the
next the CFO, the guy who's staying on to run the Grok cloud business. I'd be saying, hey, wait, don't go anywhere. if you got accelerated vesting, stay here. I'm going to give you new grants on our new organization's phantom stock table, or however we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And he'd want to retain people who had internal corporate knowledge at Grok on how to continue its operations successfully.
Yeah. And it's obviously a good marriage here with what NVIDIA can do with their chips and have been doing their chips. But Grok, obviously, with what they're able to do from a cost perspective and inference perspective, are really unmatched. I mean, there's other companies out there, I know, but that's really a match made in heaven because, the NVIDIA chips, as amazing as they weren't necessarily originally built to, run AI. And obviously Grok is very good at that. So, and also the guy that started Grok also built the TPMs at Google. So talk about having intelligence in your, human intelligence in that organization in NVIDIA. Now, not that they were hurting, but that certainly can't hurt.
But at NVIDIA, they've got a lot of big brains, globally.
Sure.
And now, but you've got the chief architect of TPUs and Grok, both of them really major advances in chip design and manufacture, and then maybe not the manufacturing side of it, but Grok had to think about that. And then I think one of the things that Grok and TPU do take advantage of is that they're able to do manufacturing on existing infrastructure for chip development in a way that really accelerates their delivery, which Grok certainly did. They managed to build, I think, in 2024, 2025, over 2025, they managed to deliver hundreds of thousands of their chips, the LPUs.
Yeah. Thanks for the correction, by the way. I was saying TPMs, TPUs, tensor processing units. I appreciate that. TPMs, is that from Office Space? Is that why that's stuck in my head? Is it Office? Is it?
I'm sorry, I didn't even notice that you said it. It gives me a little bit to you.
No. So I appreciate. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did say it the correct way. I often get those acronyms mixed up. Carl, you've been quiet so far. Did you have any, before we kind of get into, I had some like, what did we talk about 1 and 2 years ago type stuff. That's interesting. We can kind of just have fun with, but did you have any like real quick news that you wanted to share before we sort of pivot into that?
Not really. Like I can help you pivot because one thing that I noticed, and I just been noticing a little bit more, is for those who are paying attention to Avengers Doomsday, there is the official trailers, then you have the leaked trailers, but then you have people creating AI leaked trailers, which is kind of cool. And then you have people cleaning up the leaked trailers using AI. And then you have people creating trailers off the official trailers. And so I thought it was really amazing. And anyone can really do it now, right? Like there's some really, really good, because concept trailers and fan trailers have always been around, right? People can create those, and it's usually mishmashes of clips from previous videos. And if you know how to video edit, you can manipulate it just enough to get a trailer going. But now I think if you see some of it, it's pretty good. I think like the studios would be insane not to leverage that going into 2026. Be like, see how many people are actually creating to hype essentially this movie. And this movie doesn't come out till 2026. So you have all these people creating all these different trailers off leaked trailers and new trailers. It would make sense for them to be like, hey, let's gather some really talented creators, have them create AI generated trailers off our trailers, or however you want to do it, to really promo video. And think about those companies that don't have the budget to market their movies, right? They have to really leverage some of these and pay, AI creators to do some of this stuff.
Well, that's an interesting idea, but that would require a lot of alignment with untold parts of the story that aren't leaked in the trailer, right? So in effect, a trailer, a variation is a fork of the story, because they don't know the full story. Maybe I don't know about these particular.
We're going to do it anyway. Like right now, one of the trends on TikTok is coming up with your theory on the story, the plot of Avengers Doomsday. So you got a whole bunch of people coming, and it's like the theories are pretty sound. Like if you actually have read the comics, understood the plot lines, and then kind of connect the dots, it's like these all make kind of sense in one form or another. Especially like I think it was Ultimate Doomsday. I forgot which character. I read the comic where like that was it. This person connected it with that comic book series, and I was like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense. And they connected it all together. So I just think it's like it would be insane for that, like for companies not to ignore that or try to shut that down, because it's like you know what, lean into it. Don't try to, because it's just gonna happen. So I thought like, hey, it's an opportunity.
Right. And it's interesting because it's one of the industries that doesn't embrace user-generated content necessarily.
Yeah.
Right? But user-generated content is embraced by industries for a reason, because it creates all of that conversation. And you could even do something like, like, or like, we think this one's great, but without that being like, we have that's leaked some critical part of the story.
There's stories and things that obviously that just can't be made. There's just not enough money or just not enough time. Some of these things that I've seen, I've been, I don't know, my YouTube is now filled with like Star Wars backstories and trailer concepts, and just to see what people are coming up with, like, oh, this is the story after Vader, like Darth Vader after Mustafar, right? It's like he went back and this is what he saw. And when he played it out, I was like, that fits for a lot of people. Like this fits into the lore, because the movie had to cut, like just movies would be 5-6 hours long if you include all this stuff.
Right.
Like it's enough to be like, oh, like think about all the movies, forget Star Wars, but like think about the movie plot lines and like, why did that happen? But you can create the plot of like, oh, this is why it happened, or this is the backstory of this character, or like a prequel, your own sequel, because or like it's kind of neat because they leverage the comic or the canon comics to fill it in, so it's not like deviating from the canon, right? Like, but they just can't. There's anyone can officially make that part, right? So yeah.
But it does For me, we now get into like I want it to be done like a celebrity lookalike because fan fiction is a different format, right? Like it's not as good as the thing, but if what we're seeing are different like forks of the story, now my brain is like, wait, no, wait.
Which reboot? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's not have Pedro Pascal as Darth Vader. It doesn't make any sense. But but how they like, there's one I don't know if I showed it. I can't remember where like they have like the version of Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader, but like as Darth Vader, and he's all burnt, being like reflecting on a whole bunch of stuff. Well, like I was just like, holy like that is outstanding what that person did, and just the backstory after the backstory after the backstory after the front story. I was like Disney was actually, to me, if they leaned into this right, they're pretty smart. Some of these creators can create.
They are leaning into this with your Sora.
Yes.
They are leaning into this. And I think this is really brilliant because you have, not only your big directors, you have smaller directors and stuff like that who have director's cuts who aren't official canon of any movie, right? They're just the director's cut there. They could be just longer, but also they could have slight alternatives to the story or plot line that didn't make the final cut. We know so much of editing lands on the, cutting room floor because of all sorts of reasons, good reasons otherwise, budget constraints otherwise. So I see this as perhaps and I feel like Gwen is kind of talking about this too in the comments. I'll bring up her comment in a second, but I feel like this could be a potential workaround. There's a huge stigma, obviously, against using AI in movies, although I guarantee you it's being used everywhere. That's just my opinion on that. Just like in music, I think it's silly to say like we don't see it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. You're not using it, but my point is, you could be a director now, Carl, and say like, hey, like I'm curious what y'all think this is, right? So here's a plot line or whatever. Let's see who comes up with the best thing. And then people go out and they create sort of the fan fiction version of that or whatever. And, no, it's not the official story or whatever, but it's a great way for these studios to say like, hey, we're not using AI, but we think it's super cool that like our fans are using AI to be able to do stuff really cheap, but also produce stuff that a lot of people like. And I do think we're kind of seeing this how we are seeing this with Disney. They literally said, hey, we will have a way for me, Beth, Andy, Carl, Jimmy, right, to create content with Disney characters, but not the voices, and that we might see that created content on Disney Plus. And so that's very, very interesting. And they will not be the first or the last, rather, to do that. So yeah, 2026 is going to be really interesting from that side, because we're definitely at a point now, to your point, Beth, like, can you make it look almost indistinguishable? Well, to the casual fan, I'm a casual Star Wars fan. That's as much as I can say. So there's lots that could probably trick my eye with very little. I'm not going to catch it. I'm not going to catch that there was an inconsistency, most likely. I'm just not that level of fan. So there's lots of stuff that is Star Wars related that I might really, really enjoy that was fan created, just like today. The fact is, though, they can do it much cheaper and they can do it much faster. So
I don't remember, like, even if you're like a casual Star Wars fan, I'm sure there are movie series or shows that you are a fan of, and you're like, you know what? I don't like the direction, or I wanted to forget the movies. Like, there's series like I'm a big fan of like The Rookie. Right, kind of like that show. So it's like, oh, I want, and we probably talked about this, but it's like, hey, I want a more of a backstory of this minor character because I'm really a big fan of this minor character.
Yeah, right.
Why don't you? And it's more for you too. It's like, oh, I want to kind of create that backstory in like 10 minutes, and then you kind of do it, and you're like, that's so cool. And I feel like that's what social could become, where you like you'll have a whole bunch of people creating, and you're like, just. Like, to me, that's $1 billion idea, is like creating a social network where all it is videos on popular movies or whatever, and that people are creating their own backstories.
even more so than that, every studio is sitting on quite literally thousands of shows that never made it to pilot. Maybe made it to pilot, but didn't make it past pilot. Maybe made it 5 episodes.
Canceled. Or series were canceled.
For all sorts of reasons. And nowadays you see them get moved and it gets bounced over from Fox and FX picks it up. Sometimes they do really well. I mean, and Netflix has revitalized several series because of that. But who's to say like you're sitting on all this IP? Okay, studios, you don't like, you're saying we're not going to do anything with this, but let's figure out a way to monetize this for the studios that also gives access to people who might want to pick up that 5-run show and say, what if this kept going and these characters, and somebody could probably have a lot of fun with that. And so the studio is going to be mad if that catches fire. Maybe they just turn around and greenlight it.
I think it depends. I think it depends how much people are attached to their creation of the project, right? So if you bought like the idea of it and then it didn't change hands a bunch of times, that might be harder to go through. What we're talking about in terms of Marvel is not right, like that's gone through a ton of hands. There are a lot of people who were involved in making those decisions. But the other thing that I was thinking is there's a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff that is like, no, they made a mistake. So this forks from like, no, it didn't get destroyed or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Right. And that actually becomes this sort of really interesting place too.
Yep.
Like, because now you're not just doing the franchise piece.
Wow. Y'all disagree. Full heart.
We're not just doing the franchise piece. We are doing the we're doing like the fork of the franchise, right? Like, what if, I don't know, Willow wasn't evil? What if something, right?
But you can have like every single show, right? Like the joke is always like, for people who watch the Coronation Street who find that very boring, it's like you can fork that thing to however you want to fork that thing. Imagine like this turning it into this. I want to turn it into an action movie rather than like a drama. Like there's so many things. It's like, hey, like I don't like how this person died, so you know what? I'm going to turn them into a robot, and then it happens this way. And if people follow me, fine. If they don't, I don't care because
You're doing it for you anyway.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
This is, I don't know. It's an idea that I would love, so I'm going to call it $1 million idea. Make it a musical, right? Like, all right, this was like a really big, important episode. What happens if everybody breaks out into song?
Or something? Yes. And it's just, and people will love it. This is to me where creativity is like, you can have fun in all sorts of ways, and if you do it correctly. And as long as people know, hey, it's AI, they'll be like, that's hilarious, that's amazing, and I think this is where, you can really press your talent.
Okay, I know we could keep pontificating on this topic, and I think there's a lot that will happen in 2026. People have already said in the comments like, oh, there was a Darth Vader one. You've mentioned a few, Carl. Look, we're going to see more of it in 2026, regardless. People are going to come up with some really creative stuff. So what's really exciting to me, and I've been saying this forever, whatever the arts are, whether you're in the music, of video, movies, whatever, I do really love seeing how creative people can do. I mean, Gareth from our community and all the stuff he's done. Greg has done stuff, really, really interesting. And it's cool to see what they're building with AI. And to your point, Carl, saying like, yeah, look, I am doing this with AI. It's full up in front. Everybody knows this is how it was created. I didn't take any jobs away. I'm doing this because I have a love of this or this character, and I wanted to see how far I could push it. This shouldn't be impacting anybody else. But I think there's a way for everybody to kind of win here, including the studios, including the original characters, including, getting grants for voices. I think there's maybe Disney is already there in their heads, and they're just planting the seeds right now towards that. I wanted to, like, if I could just throw some things at you guys just for some fun conversation here. I mentioned at the top of the show that I have a couple summaries from 2 years ago. We've been doing the show two and a half now, I guess. And 630 shows ish, somewhere in that range. So, we've talked, well, a lot. And, as Anne has always said very generously to us, that this is sort of a running ledger of AI through history, at least since we started doing this show. Well, that's sort of the fun of this. And you guys saw what I was building with the website and all that stuff to make this even easier. For now, I literally just went back 2 years and went back a year and used Gemini to do some quick, grab the transcript from YouTube and then do some quick summaries. So that's how we got where we are. But I mentioned, Beth, you had this is back from 2 years ago. You talked about continuity and memory. Jimmy had predicted OS integration. He envisions a future where you don't log into a website. AI is simply an always on layer that of the operating system across devices. AI will be wearing you, was a quote from him. Now, I think that's a nice little prediction because of all the things we've seen from Comet and all the integrations. That's not necessarily an OS, although we know that's coming as well. But certainly Jimmy was on target for like the things like Comet and sort of an always on AI. I think we have that basically in a lot of ways. And so I love that prediction from him. Andy, you were focusing on reasoning and agency. It says you expected the model to develop a quote in context learning where it can reason through objectives and act as an agent to complete complex tasks. Damn, Andy, from 2 years ago, we were nailing that. I mean, come on. That's pretty dead on. Aaron was saying he expects significant improvement in video, voice, and graphic capabilities. Yeah, of course. I said I had a practical wish for a search bar within the chat history to easily find previous conversations, and that does exist. So it was good stuff. And funny enough, at the bottom it says the next episode we're going to be talking about Q Star. So 2 years ago we were discussing what is Q Star? What is it going to be? There was some issues we talked about on the show as far as like there was a poem glitch. If the user was using GPT 3.5 to repeat the word poem indefinitely, it would eventually break the model's guardrails and start spitting out raw training data, including personal identifiable information like phone numbers and Zoom links. I don't remember this particular story. Beth, do you remember, or does anybody else remember the poem glitch? I don't.
And that is still a problem, right? There's still really obvious ways that you can jailbreak models, and that is it's no longer news in a way. Like it's a little bit of news when something new comes out, and the one that I follow is Elder Plinius, maybe on X. He announces, or they announce, yep, jailbroken. And they have a specific set of things that are red teamed out that he can get it to say. Yeah.
Okay. So that's really, I don't remember the story, but I mean, like you're saying, it's still going on. Now, Beth and Andy on here, there's one from Jimmy as well. And not me or Carl. I don't know. Maybe we just didn't add anything, but these were your aha moments that you mentioned 2 years ago. Beth, you shared you shared a personal email from December 10th, 2022, where you told a friend you had just had the best conversation of my life regarding workshop ideas and marketing copy. So I think that's really cool. Andy, you said you recalled using Jasper, built on OpenAI's API in 2021, but noted that November 30th, 2022 was the moment AI learned to speak to us naturally and was delivered to the masses. So I think that's kind of fun from that show. And then we did a Wayback. I guess I had done a segment where I did a Wayback Machine on OpenAI's website. I kind of remember doing that, actually. I wouldn't have guessed that was 2 years ago, but we did that. Around the same time, this was maybe like 20 episodes later. So episode 103 from December 27th. So almost 2 years ago. Here's something I would not, if you would put this in trivia, I'd say no. Johnny Ive and OpenAI collaboration. Reports surfaced that Apple's former chief design officer, Johnny Ive, is collaborating with OpenAI as Sam Altman, blah, blah, blah. That's from 2 years ago. They've been talking about this for 2 years. Obviously, we talked about it on the show. But there's something that's blowing my mind because although I'm fully aware of that story, and we've certainly talked about it on here about what they might be creating, and no, it's not a phone, but it's an AI device. It's going to be like a human pin, something different. We don't know. Is it a wearable? But I would not have guessed that was that we were talking about this as news 2 years ago. Does that ring for you guys? Do you feel like, yeah, that Gen IV stuff's been going on? Does it feel like 2 years to you guys? Because it doesn't to me. Anybody?
No, it doesn't feel like 2 years, but then again, I can't remember. Everything's going so fast. I can't remember even like last year, like what was moving and what kind of happened. Like it felt like even the release of '01 was like, I was like, what that was, it feels so far away, but it actually wasn't. Like '03, right? Feels so far away, but it actually wasn't.
That was a 2025 thing, right?
Yeah.
Would you say 03?
Yeah, '03 then to GPT-5, right? It was like, what happened? Like it feels so far away, but it isn't.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
There,
yeah.
There's a list on X of all of the things that were released in 2025, and you would think that it was a 3-year list,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I agree with you. By the way, we also did talk about the Humane AI pin. Andy, you had discussed that you noted that it had an awful high entry cost of $700 and $24 a month subscription, and questions its value proposition compared to existing smartphones. Well, I think you were rightfully concerned about Humane, the AI pin, because we all remember the implosion that happened there. Marquise Brownlee's video on it, as well as others. OpenAI had a valuation at that time. This is again 2 years ago of $100 billion valuation, compared to where they are today, making it at that time the second most valued startup behind SpaceX. So $100 billion valuation 2 years ago. And then just real quick, if we just jump into now, we're warping forward 1 year, so now we're right around a year ago. Key themes and predictions. Mixture of agents came up quite a bit. Andy predicted rather than one all-powerful personal assistant, we will see crews of agents. These distinct agents will form a council to interact with one another to solve complex tasks collectively. And I feel like that's sort of, would you say, Andy, is that still in line for what you were talking about for 2026?
I think that's what Manus and GenSpark are.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's great.
Too.
Yeah,
right? Claude Code.
so you could create sub agents in Claude Code, and then the Claude Code's center agent, if you will, the one you're talking to in terminal, that one calls upon those agents as necessary.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that I would say, yes, that prediction absolutely was a good one. I had said agentic workflows will become mainstream. I don't know about that. I don't think agentic workflows are mainstream. Likely within walled gardens like OpenAI or Perplexity, he believes these will function more like smart automated workflows that keep users within specific ecosystems rather than fully autonomous agents doing tasks like buying groceries. Actually, I'm going to give myself sort of like a 50-50 on that one. I don't think I did great because we haven't, although we have definitely seen OpenAI do their thing or Perplexity does theirs or whatever. We've also seen workflows that aren't necessarily tied down to any one particular system. It can still be built across it. I mean, that's certainly capable. Have we really seen true agentic workflows? I mean, I build these things all the time. And although I've seen some really good things, I've either been a part of building them or I've seen other people build them that weren't, that I just was witnessing. I don't know that I've seen anything that I'll put my finger on and go, I don't know, that's sort of agentic because of the way that it's predicting future use cases, the AI being predicting future use cases and making prescriptive moves based on new scraped data or reoccurring or whatever. I don't really see that. We can certainly build into a CRM and say, go look at everything that's in an open opportunity, right? If it's in sales, and given those open opportunities, take AI and go out and do lots of research and then cross-reference that with every email, every transcript of a call. We can do all this today, right? And then given all that information, if that hits certain criteria or rings a few bells, then go do this. We can build that today. That to me is still not the same thing though as saying a true agentic workflow, which doesn't really need me to give it the playbook. It's smart enough as the AI to go, just tell me like what happened, what we just saw with Gemini 3. Just tell me what the overarching goal is and then get out of my way.
You can do that.
Already see this.
Yeah.
Right? Do you agree, Beth?
You can do that now. You can give an overarching goal and get out of the way and then have it come back. Now, your skill at giving the overarching goal can determine whether you like what you get back.
Sure.
But they are at a place where you can do that.
Would you say that? I just want to get some clarification from you. Have you seen where that's happening across many different, like, let's call them tools? They don't have to be AI tools, but many different tools where they're sort of working in a symphony together. Have you seen something that you feel like, well, let me just ask you, have you seen something, Beth, where you feel like, oh, that's an agentic workflow? Or do you feel like maybe we're almost there, but you haven't seen that yet? And this was everybody, by the way. I'm curious.
I have seen agentic workflows that I would say they're little mini agents, right? So there's an agent that goes and gets that information.
Mm-hmm.
There's another agent that goes and gets that information. There's an agent here that makes a decision based on what got brought back in this particular flow that may or may not take an action. So they're agentic in that kind of thing, but it's really just systems, right? It's inputs and outputs and logic.
I do want to mention, like, I feel like all the large language models are going to get there. Like, all the major ones will get there. Like, anything that, it's funny because, like, when I saw the news about Salesforce saying we can't trust this because it's this, because, well, one, your expectations that you hype people up don't match what either you never use these systems yourself, or you purposely try to hype it up, that stuff that it can't do.
Yes.
Because if you actually know there's certain things that it can't do, or your system doesn't make any sense, and you're talking about RPA versus an actual really using AI to do workflows and stuff like that.
And can we just, take just a minute to like say that Salesforce may have jumped the shark because their whole thing was you can trust us, and now their whole thing is you should keep us because you can't trust the same. Like,
that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, like, if you really think about what these tools could do, right? So, like, let's take Gemini, for example. Let's take ChatGPT. Gemini, its integration with any kind of Google work product, Gmail, Docs, what if you use that, and plus Opal, there's a lot of synergy, interconnectivity between that. Then I also think, like, if you use ChatGPT for business, especially when you hit the company knowledge, connecting it to SharePoint, connecting it to your Outlook, your calendars, it does a pretty significant job in that. And then you can start scheduling stuff too, right? Now, you can even take Claude Code and really build some crazy stuff with that. So it's not like, why would I go out and buy an external system to do this when these large language models are just like a year or two away from being able to do what you need to do on a regular basis? Again, can it do the octopus type N8N things or octopus type whatever, Lindy, that kind of stuff? No, but it's coming for it. It's not, and we're not talking about its own, like, the agent builder. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, like, if you actually understood how these systems fully work, you can kind of build it in that manner. And, like, do you really need to have like an N8N system to do this? Maybe you do, but you only have a 6-month runway before these systems can be able to integrate that or rebuild it completely and not have to think about an actual work.
Well,
right?
I'll tell you real quick on this, what has been a big eye opener to me, and Andy does this, is when I started building the thing for the Daily iShow website that I'm working on and the search thing, I fully expected in Lovable, when I was working with Gemini, that at some point I would have to say, now connect to N8N to do this thing. Guess what has never happened?
No.
I've never once had to go to N8N because Gemini is giving me the prompting to tell Lovable how to just do it inside the website. And I'm circumventing what would have been N8N. Now, will that hold? I'm not sure because I'm not done with the build, but I thought I would have been an N8N way earlier. I haven't touched it yet.
So I think that part of what is happening here is that we're like hallucination meets bug, right?
Mm.
Because in software development or systems like that, it isn't that things always work, right? I mean, there are problems that are still something that is considered overall a workable system, and then you treat those little pieces. I think in AI, in terms of people talking about hallucination and reliability, that has been kind of a deal breaker, right? If you're going to give me anything that doesn't work, anything that's wrong, now we don't trust it as much. But I think where we're coming with agentic evaluation is a little more like a software thing. Like, okay, it missed that one piece, and now we're going to have the debug agent go and look at it, but it doesn't mean that it's not there because it's held to a different standard, I think.
Andy, before we move on, I'd be curious just real quick on this one, and I'll bring up one or two more here, and then we can sort of wrap things up. But agentic workflows, we just want to bring it back to you because we didn't hear from you. Do you, the same question that I asked Beth, do you believe that you've already seen it? If yes, how do you define that? Or do you think we're still maybe a little off from it?
Well, what trips me up is the use of the word workflow there. Like,
okay,
have I seen agentic behavior in the agentic model that's supporting me as I do my workflow in interaction with it? Yes, I've seen that. Have I codified a specific workflow and seen that it has components like an agent LLM within an N8N sequence? No. So setting aside the terminology about a workflow, yes, I've seen agentic work, and I think Carl, you actually did a demo on the show here recently, within the last month or so, where you showed Claude Code extensively, and you articulated multiple agents within the Claude Code implementation that you were doing, and it was for a client.
Yeah,
that's clearly, the super agent, like in GenSpark, you talk to the super agent and it has all these other capabilities that are sub agents. It's a mixture of agents architecture. I think Claude Code is very similar to that. And so you showed that you could talk to Claude Code conversationally and it would call upon the sub agents without you having to specifically nominate one of them as necessary in that process. So you give it an objective and it takes advantage of an agent that you defined previously.
And that's what I think, whether you use Codex, because it could do that, whether you use Claude Code, I believe I'm annoyed at anti-gravity because of the stupid rate limits that I'm hitting, but I believe that can do it too. And I think like part of, I missed yesterday's show, but like my prediction is that like that gets leaned in on, and then you have brand new OS, which we know that the hiring of, who did OpenAI hire from Shopify, one of the VPs, he literally said, I am trying to build a new OS in this whole system. So I was like, it's inevitable that we will get some sort of that capability to be able to control my computer to do certain things. And like, that is the big piece right now, that unless most of these systems are all cloud, right? It's like, oh, connect your Gmail to this. It's like, no, a lot of people still use their local drives, but if you can connect both, like an MCP to whatever, plus connecting local drives, that is like true. Here, now have an agent to make, hey, I need you to go do this. Oh, I'm going to search your local drive first. Oh, I'm going to go the internet. I can do both. That,
yeah. Which is an LLM plus web, right?
Just
That's basically it.
Just not in a, as my business partner said, not in a DOS type format that no one knows how to use, right? It has to have some sort of nice interface. Yeah. It's like whenever I show it, it's like, no, hey, this is an awesome agent. They're like, I can't understand what you're even doing, right? But if you have a nice interface, it's like, hey, see, like this moves into this. This is turning into your local drive. Now it's opening a browser, which Claude Code can do. If you have the Claude Code, the Claude Chrome extension, it could open the browser and you could be like, hey, I need you to search this. Pop. it pops open. It's crazy because I'm just seeing it, and then it's like it's much slower than OpenAI's agent. It much slower. It kind of gets to the same thing, but anyway, it can do it. So it's like it's not too hard to connect the dots to all these things.
Well, but we'll talk about this at another show, I'm sure. But to your point, the latest information about who OpenAI wants to hire is a preparedness person. And if you see the job description, it's like, this will be a very difficult job. We're doing all kinds of things that people will be very upset about, and you will be in charge of handling everything related to that. Please come if you would like to be a part of it. So, like, we are moving much.
A preparedness person all the time. It's like, didn't you prepare for this? Like, what's wrong with you?
Okay, if you guys are ready for it, let's do a quick. We're wrapping up 2025, the Daily AI show for 2025. Tomorrow's a new year, so let's look. I have actually, so it happens. I have a prediction from a year ago from each of y'all, plus one from me. And let's just do this sort of rapid fire. I will read all of them out to begin with, and then we'll just go quick round robin and just give me your opinion on whether you feel like your prediction is true or not. So, in order here, Carl predicted a 25 to 30% increase in the use of voice for AI interactions as tools like Advanced Voice Model and 11 Labs improve. Users will move away from typing to having full conversational interactions with their own agents. That was Carl's. Okay, Beth predicted a significant pushback on AI, resulting in a societal schism. She believes nuance will be lost, dividing people into a AI is great versus AI is bad camps. Andy, you predicted that legal profession will be transformed, potentially leading to a drop in law school applications as AI replaces many drafting and transactional tasks previously done by lawyers. And then I had predicted similarly, but maybe in a different area, will be the biggest 24 and 25 would have the biggest push yet for personalized education platforms. I said I envision AI contacts that last an entire school year, tracking the students' progress and knowing gaps in real time. Okay, I will add my rapid fire. I will say on mine, I have not personally seen a company who has solved for this. I'm not saying they're not out there, but I would have to go do some research to see if somebody has quote unquote done this sort of context. I will say we've definitely seen huge pushes towards a more hyper personalization with things like Notebook LM and others, and both OpenAI and Gemini or Google coming out with their for education type style LLMs. But if I'm being honest, I think that's kind of a miss. I don't think I have personally seen something at the level that I think I was talking about 1 year ago. So that was mine. Let's just go in order here. Beth, you're up first.
I think yes. I have seen much more of a schism of AI is bad, AI is good. And in fact, Ethan Malik wrote recently about why that's not the question. That's too simple. So,
Carl, on the 25 to 30% increase in voice use.
I don't think it happened, but I think there's an increase in use because a lot more people are using things like Whisper Flow, right? Like that kind of stuff they're using. But I still don't think the 25 increase has happened outside of the bubble. Like I see most people are just typing that stuff in.
Well, but if you're using AI,
if you are using AI, even then, I don't think it's right. Like, of all of us, do all of you use Whisper Flow or something, or do most of you? Exactly, that's right. Yeah. It's still not like
I use Monologue.
Brian, it'll change your life.
I know. I haven't used it. We're gonna mic right here. You know, you would think I'd use it more.
And you like to talk.
I like talk. But with that in mind, so I don't get stuck on that, Andy, you have the floor last. Prediction on legal profession being transformed. Do you feel like you've seen that in 2025?
No. No, in fact, 2025 data shows rising applications, and they did not decline in 2025. In fact, there was an 8% jump versus the prior year and about 13% above 2023. So it has not deterred people from entering the legal profession.
I know.
I wanted to reinforce Carl's prediction, though, about voice, which is I am now a no turning back user of Whisper Flow. And I catch myself sometimes because I'm so used to typing, going to the keyboard, and I go, damn it. Okay. And I reach over and press the function, to start talking to the computer. It's really an advancement.
Well, I need to make that more of a consistent thing, I think, because I think the more I use it, the more I'll use it type of deal. And so 2026 would be great for that. People were asking about predictions for the Daily AI show. I just want to bring up Greg, who said, I would not predict for the Daily AI show. Just keep going with the flow. Don't use yesterday's KPIs. Benchmarks are restraints. Thank you. Listen, this is a great place to end it for this year. Of course, we'll have a show tomorrow and Friday. So we'll be back the rest of the week as well. But since this is the last show of 2025, let's end it by saying, hey, we do this because we do love talking about AI. And yes, we know we're in the bubble, but we do this because we love our community. And so this show wouldn't really be, we do it still. We might still have our private, conversations or whatever, but this is fun because it's not just the 4 or 5 or 6 of us, depending on who's on the show of the day. It's because there's a whole community behind the show, and the Daily AI show is not just the few of us here. It's everybody in the comments and everybody in the communities. And so we just want to say, thank you to everybody in the comments right now, but also who listens to us, who we just personally have never met, but you're out there. You're one of the 350 people who have us as the top show on Spotify. Thank you. That's I think the best way to end it for this year. And look, we have all sorts of ideas of what to do for the show in 2026. So keep coming back. Stay tuned. We'll keep figuring it out alongside with you and growing along the way. So with that, I hope everybody has a really, really safe. Maybe it's already New Year's for you, wherever you're listening to this. It could be for Aaron. It is. Hey, Aaron, it's already 2026 in Perth, Australia. But regardless, I hope you guys have a safe, happy New Year's. Be safe out there. Don't be on the roads unless you have to be. A bunch of dummies out there. And we will see you in 2026. Everybody, have a great day.
Aloha.